Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristin Lander from Fiercely Fuel Nutrition Coaching and Dr. Mary Morton, scientist and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to Empowered by Iron. This is Kristin. Today, Mary and I are going to talk about some things that I talked about on my personal Instagram page that got a lot of questions and comments, and a lot of you reached out to me wanting to hear more about this and more in depth than I could do in an Instagram post. So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. We are going to talk about gaining weight intentionally.
But not bulking.
Well, maybe.
Maybe, but I think we'll get into this. But I think that our definition of putting on mass is different than bulking.
Sure. Okay. So that's, this is a topic that I think is like really needed for women to hear about. And it's difficult to talk about just in that there's a lot of people misinterpret what's being said. And so I think that a lot of times we hear things and we hear what we want to hear, or we hear what we're afraid we're hearing. So like if someone says, you should intentionally gain weight, people are like, why would I do that? Mm-hmm. It's terrifying.
Well, it's terrifying because our whole society tells us that women need to be small, and you're having someone telling you to do something different than the norm. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. I will say that. We are programmed as women to try to be small and tiny and take up as less space as possible. And I think even those of us that realize like, no, okay, it's okay. I don't have to be tiny and quote unquote, like super skinny, whatever that means to you. But then the reality of trying to gain weight as an athlete, it doesn't matter, I think, how prepared you are for it. Mm-hmm. There's still this like, oh my gosh, what's happening to my body? It can be really scary. And I think that a lot of people got into lifting as a way to maybe lose weight or lose body fat. Mm-hmm. It was a method of exercise that they enjoy. Yeah. And so then they really get into it and they want to get competitive. And then suddenly someone's saying gain weight. And it's like, what? No, I just worked to lose weight. What are you talking about?
Right. Because I think you're right. A lot of people get into fitness in general because they want to lose weight. They want to be healthier. They want to feel better about their body. And a lot of people get in are overweight, and then they discover lifting, and then they get really strong. But I think this is important for us to talk about because we are female strength athletes, and our primary goal is to not be small. Right. It's to be strong. And sometimes you have to sacrifice being small to be strong, I would say, in majority of cases, unless you're already tiny. Like there are some very tiny lifters.
Yeah, that's
Heather Connor is a tiny lifter.
Alyssa
Ritchie. These are people who just, they are tiny because they're tiny, and they're always going to be small. That's just how their body is made. But then there's people like us who try to, or have tried to in the past, be tiny, fit in this tiny box when our bodies are built to be bigger.
Right. Absolutely. It's all about your body type. And so to be clear, when we're talking about gaining weight and things like that, I'm not talking about going from like the smallest weight class to the biggest weight class.
No. And I think that's what people hear. They say gain weight. I just don't want to go up a weight class. Well, that's not what we mean. It may for some people that be what we mean, but that's not what we mean. But we wanted to talk about this because Kristin here has went through this journey just in the last few months. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk to you, interview you about this process. So what made you finally say, fuck it, I'm going to get strong? And if that means putting on weight, that is what it is. What sparked that fire?
Yeah. So I had, I compete in the tested USPA division. So the weight classes, I fell right in between two different weight classes, 148 and 165. I was sitting around like 155, 156 pounds was kind of where I was at. And we were trying to position myself to potentially qualify for some bigger meets. Maybe I wanted to lift as a 148 because if I could maintain the total if I could even just hit the total that I had hit as a 165 as a 148, that would have put me in a very good position to do things that I wanted to do.
Right.
So we decided, let's use a local meet as a qualifier for these meets. Qualify at 148 because you can always go up a weight class. You can't go down from what you've qualified.
Well,
at.
as long as you have reached the total in the upper weight class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Very good point. So I decided I did a cut well out in advance from the meet. I maintained 2 months going into the meet. I maintained, I cut down to 152. So then I was leaving myself 4 pounds to water cut, which was with a 24-hour weigh-in was not going to be a big deal. And so I did it. I competed at 148. I got my elite total, which was one of my goals. I qualified for everything I wanted to qualify for: nationals, worlds, North American championships, all that.
Well, for us listening, that sounds pretty good, but I know you personally.
Yeah.
So what was that actually like?
Well, I had a shit meet. I mean, my best squat was lower than any of my even, I think, second attempts at any powerlifting meet I had done. I didn't even squat 300 at that meet. I've never not squatted 300 in a meet. My bench did pretty okay, but that's because I'm newer to powerlifting and I was still learning bench. So I did pretty good on bench. My deadlift sucked. I don't even know what I pulled. In the lead up to that meet during training, I knew something was wrong. Like things weren't going well. I was messaging my coach, Stacy Burr, like this isn't me. I don't know what's going on. Something's wrong. And at this point, I wasn't even thinking that it had been the weight cut because I had maintained for 2 months.
Right.
So I was like, it's not the weight issue. Like something else is going on. I really thought, I was like, maybe because I'm also not the most trusting person. It takes a while for me to really trust someone's methods and my coach and all that. And while I absolutely adore Stacy, when it came to what we were doing to get me ready for this meet, I was like, maybe it's my programming, maybe like just I really thought it was anything except for my body weight because I wasn't like sickly lean or anything. I just, was...
Well, you were following maintenance macros for your body weight, for your body fat percentage, which in theory, and this is sometimes when theory doesn't necessarily look like what's happening in real life, in theory, that should have been enough for you. That should have been what you needed to recover, what you needed to train with. But turns out,
it wasn't enough. Right. So after that meet, we talked about it and Stacy was like, I don't want you to ever lift in this weight class again. I think you were pretty convinced that was a bad idea. Stacy, I was new to Stacy at that point. Like Stacy had been with me and helped me out at previous meets, but she wasn't my coach at those meets. And so she went from an outsider's perspective to an insider's perspective. Like she wasn't really entirely sure what had gone on. So basically, I think all of us kind of talked about it and we're like, this is a bad idea. I don't feel strong at this body weight. And that's when I started doing the research. Like, because I knew that there was an ideal body fat percentage to put on strength. And that has to do with our hormones. Right. And so I knew that I was likely experiencing some hormonal issues that were keeping me from putting on strength. So I really started researching that. And that's when we did that episode on the ideal body fat percentage for building strength is between 23 and 27% for women. And I was probably at that meet 19% body fat, which I've been there before. And I was pretty strong there before, but my body has changed a lot since then. And it wasn't working for me anymore. So like I said, I wasn't gaining the strength that I should have had. After the meet, I still tried to maintain like 153. And that's when I really started seeing that my heart rate variability was just in the tank. I was not recovering from my training. I was like excessively moody and fatigued.
It was almost really... like you were in a chronic caloric deficit.
That's what it felt like. It felt like,
but you weren't. Like in theory, you were eating what you should for your body weight, for your body fat
Absolutely,
percentage.
which is why I always say that just because you're eating at maintenance doesn't mean that you don't need more food based on what your symptoms are or how you're feeling or training and all of that.
Right. Well, because maintenance, if we just do the calculator for maintenance, it's just science and it's just math. But math, has a really bad way of accommodating for actual biology. Right. We can say in theory the numbers work, but then if it's not working for you, we obviously didn't take into account your biology and we need to shift.
Right. I just saw a quote the other day that was really interesting that was talking about how research is the average. Right?
It is, but so it doesn't take into account the outliers.
Yes.
Or the mean, median, or mode. It's the mean. It's not the mode. It's not the median.
Right. So it's not just because the research says this and a calculator says this or this really fancy math equation says this. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
And it didn't work for you.
It wasn't working for me. And one of the biggest things too was I was having extreme fatigue after training.
You were
dead. I called it deading.
3 hours. She would text me like, well, I can't do anything for 3 hours. And I'd be like, that seems odd. Like, I know that you're tired after training and maybe you need like an hour to kind of recoup or 30 minutes, but 3 hours?
Yeah.
That's excessive.
My Thursdays, which are my squat and deadlift day, just killed me. We'll get into like what I've done since then, but they still do kill me, but not for 3 hours.
Right. You take the normal time to recoup afterwards and then you can kind of get going.
Right. So finally I just said, fuck it. I don't feel good. I just don't feel good. If my primary goal is performance, I did not perform well at that meet. I am not performing well or recovering well now. I now by this point I had research to prove to me that my hormones were probably not doing what I wanted them to do.
Right.
So I knew, like, you know what? Let's just gain some weight and see what happens. And in my mind I put the limit at like, let's not get out of this next weight class. Like, I'm going to stay within the next weight class, the 165 weight class, and see what happens. So basically, in short, because it's a kind of a long process of what I did, but I basically ate to recover. Mm-hmm. So I just made sure that I was monitoring several things with my recovery, my mood, my body weight, my heart rate variability, like overall stress and fatigue levels. And I just ate and made sure that those were good. As long as those numbers were good, we were good. Mm-hmm. And so what I ended up doing let me back up actually.
Back up.
One of the biggest signs to me that I needed to eat more food was that every time I had a meal that I had to estimate, I now admittedly, I'm not good at estimating macros. I tell everyone that. I'm just not good at it. But by not being good at it, what I mean is like, I maybe go over like 100 calories. I might be off, not like 1,000 calories. I'm off. Right. I'm off on like, if I estimate one meal, I might be off like 100 to 200 calories, not like an entire day's worth of eating off.
Right.
And every time I did that, I would gain weight.
So like before, it's like your body was in this very severe caloric deficit.
Right.
And when you gave it a little bit more, it was like, yes. And it just held on to it because it felt like you were starving it.
Exactly.
Which you weren't. By the math, you were not.
By the math, I was not. I think I was eating, I can't remember what my macros were at the time, but they were pretty high. I mean, I was eating well over 2,000 calories a day.
You were eating a lot.
So at any rate, the biggest predictor for me now, seeing athletes, like knowing when they need to go up in weight class, we've talked about this before, is the inability to maintain your weight. If you have just slightly more food one day and your weight increases, and it's not because it was like something super salty or something that inflamed your body, that's a really good sign that if you are not able to easily maintain your weight, you might want to consider going up a weight class because your body's asking for more food.
Or just going up in general. Well, I see a lot of people sitting in the middle of a weight class. Not to take away from that. You're right. Like going up a weight class is no big deal. But if you're in the middle of a weight class too and you don't want to put on weight, you're being silly. You're still in your weight class. If your primary goal is strength, just, eat a little bit more to recover.
Right. So I ended up it's been 5 months now, and I ended up gaining around 8 to 10 pounds, depending on the day and weight fluctuations. So around there, 8 to 10 pounds. This is not 8 to 10 pounds of muscle in 5 months.
8 to 10 pounds of fat.
Right. It's a combination.
Right.
Because what I did by eating more food was that A, my body was recovering better so I could train harder. Mm-hmm. And B, I was priming my body to build more muscle.
Right.
Yeah. Because shocker, you have to eat food to build muscle. You can't build muscle in a caloric deficit. You can, like in a perfect world, in a perfect cut, you're going to maintain your lean body mass if you do it right. My athletes do it. Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's my primary goal. Right. Let's maintain your lean body mass. And to date, I don't know of any that have lost lean body mass. It's happened and I don't know about it, but the ones that I know that we've measured have not lost lean body mass. So that's really important to me. I pride myself on that. So you may not lose lean body mass in a cut. You certainly are not going to gain lean body mass in a cut. That's not the way that our bodies work. That's not what our calories are going to be. If you are eating in a caloric deficit, we've talked about this before, your body's not primed to build muscle. It needs those calories to do other more important things than build muscle.
Like your brain function.
Right. So that building muscle is kind of like the very top of the pyramid. And if it doesn't need to, it's going to take care of everything on the bottom of the pyramid before it gets to the top.
Yup.
So, right. So I primed my body to build muscle. So I definitely have put on muscle. It's not 8 to 10 pounds of muscle. I want to be very clear about that. There was definitely body fat that I put on. But if you remember, I said I was about 19% body fat going into this whole process. And I'm probably sitting around like 23, 24% body fat, which puts me right into that range that is a good range to be in to build strength. It was not on purpose. I didn't do that intentionally. I didn't have a goal going into it saying I'm going to gain 10 pounds or I'm going to eat until I'm at XYZ body fat percentage. I ate until I felt better. And shocker, I started performing better.
Crazy.
My strength is now back to where it was pre-cut, and even before that, because if you remember, I had some overtraining stuff. So I'm back to where I was about a year ago, which is great, or stronger now.
Probably actually. Stronger now. I don't think you were benching 205 pounds a year ago.
No, more like 160 pounds. Yeah.
So that kind of leads us into the what. So what is what we're talking about, which we're kind of calling eating for recovery via massing, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very technical name for it. I like that, Mary.
Yeah. So what we're talking about when we're talking about massing is not what you're expecting to hear being part of the fitness industry. So whenever people are massing, they usually have a goal of I'm going to gain X number of pounds in 12 weeks. And they kind of just eat like shit for 12 weeks, or they just eat a lot in those 12 weeks without really prioritizing, their macros or timing or anything like that. They're simply just eating and lifting, which if you want to do that, that's fine. But as women, we typically shy away from that because society tells us to be small. Society tells us that we want to be into this tiny little box, and being part of a massing program makes us think that we're not going to be in that box. We're going to put on 20 pounds and we're going to hate ourselves.
And eat like shit.
Yeah. But what we're talking about with massing is you are eating first of all, you're eating maintenance at minimum. Like you are eating enough to fuel yourself.
Yeah.
And then you are adding an extra for recovery. So it's not like you have a set goal of I'm going to gain 20 pounds. Your goal is day by day. Do I feel recovered today? No? Okay. Then let me prioritize a little bit more food and then let's go to bed 30 minutes earlier.
Right.
It's not a end goal. It's a day by day. And maybe the next day you'll feel great and you're like, I don't need extra food today and I can go to bed at my normal time.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's very day by day. And I actually, the way I set it up was not with certain macros in mind. I mean, I had my macros still set, but I may eat over those macros, depending on how I felt that day.
Right. Well, you kind of like we talked about, you have to have the minimum, right? You do need the minimum amount of protein, right. And you need to make sure, as we've talked about a million times before, you need to have your pre and post training carbs. Those are things that are non-negotiable. Like you have to have enough protein and you have to have your pre and post and enough fat to let your hormones work.
Absolutely.
But anything above that is kind of just, fair game.
Right. So the foods that I ate were, I just ate how I normally eat. Which I eat very little processed foods. I really don't eat much sugar unless it's around training. Like you guys know, we talk about with, quick digesting carbs, but, definitely I like ice cream. So I probably had ice cream. I had ice cream in there once in a while. I think I had like my favorite, flourless chocolate cake for my birthday, which was delicious, like a piece. And so I didn't eat. I think people hear massing and they think like eat all the junk food all day, every day.
Eat
and
until you're sick.
Do that at all. Because
that's called a binge.
Well, and the other thing is those things negatively affect my performance. So if I'm doing this for performance, I need to eat foods that I know help me perform, not foods that take away from my performance and recovery. If I live off of like Pop-Tarts and ice cream, I don't perform well. My body's like numb. We would really like just some more fruit and some oatmeal and maybe some almond butter.
Yeah, you need some natural things.
Right.
So then let's talk about, after you did this.
Yeah. Which, I'm still kind of doing it.
Well, yeah, I think you're going to probably end up doing it for forever as long as you are doing some type of strength sport.
Right.
I think you feel so good doing it.
Right. Well, the one thing I really want to say before you ask your question is that how I talked about earlier where I wasn't able to maintain my weight if I ate extra food. So now I've landed about between 161 and 162 pounds. That's about where I'm at. And here's the really cool thing. I can go out for dinner and eat a meal that is like a healthy meal, a meal that I enjoy. It looks like it's about the right portion sizes, but maybe because it's at a restaurant, it might have 200 more calories than what it would have if I cooked the same thing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't gain weight from it. I'm able to very easily maintain my weight. Which is a new concept for me because for a long time I wasn't able to maintain my weight.
Right.
So I kind of panicked like, ooh, I'm getting close to the top of my weight class and I have this meet coming up. I better be careful. And it was like, no, I can eat extra food. I can let my husband cook dinner because I'm too busy or tired to cook dinner and not have to look over his shoulder. Like, what did he put in there? What's in this food? I don't worry about it.
Right.
That is huge. And that to me tells me that my body's now getting the food that it needs. I'm not really gaining more weight at this point. I'm just
but you could
staying. Yeah, I could.
You could eat like crazy and go up, but I think because you're seeing the goal as day by day.
Yep.
And it's, do I feel recovered today? Okay, I'll eat more or less.
Yep.
Then you're not really worried about going up and up and up and up.
Exactly. And the cool thing is that now I'm pretty much eating about the same every day. I feel really recovered. So I think I've kind of hit that level where my body's really happy and is easy to maintain where I'm at. Okay. What was your question now?
My question was that.
Oh.
So like, how is your body weight afterwards? But I think we should also talk about something that we've both experienced. And I think anyone who does eat for strength is going to experience this. So when we are going through this period, I know that there were weeks that you would text me and you would say, I don't like how my body looks. I don't like how this feels. I don't like anything about this. 1 week could go by and you'd be like, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. And then 2 weeks. I think what we've recognized, but it's happened to both of us, it'll happen to all of you doing Eat for Strength, is that we go through periods of fluff, unfluff.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know scientifically what's going on. I don't know biochemically what's going on, but it seems to be this reoccurring theme of you will have a week or 2 weeks that you look at your body and you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is my body. What am I doing? Am I doing this wrong? Am I eating too much?
Right.
And
regretting and questioning all
everything.
Of your choices.
Yeah. And then you'll go through weeks of, oh, I feel great. I feel lean. I'm on top of the world. Everything is fine. And it's these periods, and really your body weight doesn't seem to change all that much during these periods.
Right.
It's just that how you look and how you feel is changing.
Right.
And what you said was interesting, is you said before we recorded this that during periods of fluffy, how does your food intake look?
Yeah, during this is not like a placebo effect at all. During the periods of time where I was feeling really fluffy, I actually wasn't even feeling like I needed a whole lot of extra food. So it was like my body was like, please feed me, please feed me, please feed me. And then it got to a point where I was a little fluffy, maybe some body fat. And then I felt pretty good. So while I didn't feel good about how my body looked, physically I felt really good and was performing well. And I didn't really need a lot of extra food. And then all of a sudden, like a week later, I'd be like, oh, I see some ab shadows again. Like what happened? And I went through periods of like, eat a little more, and then fluffy, and then lean, eat a little more, fluffy, lean. And it was just, like you said, fluff on fluff.
It's fluff on fluff.
But it's mentally, and this is the thing that a lot of you reached out to me wanting me to talk about, was my mindset during this period of time, because it was scary. I will fully admit it was scary to me, because I talked about this on one of the other episodes, was that at 148, or I guess really I was like 152, I really liked how my body looked. I really liked it. That was literally the only thing I liked about it. It didn't perform well. It didn't feel good. And so as a strength athlete, what the hell am I doing if all I care about is my aesthetics? So,
well, and coming from an outsider's perspective, so I see you and I see your body, and even through periods of fluff, unfluff, it doesn't really change to people who are watching you. Like you might feel like this big fluffy monster, but you look like the same Kristin you did when you were unfluff. Like there was no real change, but it's just such a mental, and I don't even know if it's when you're puffy, is there something going on in your brain that's chemically telling you that you feel bigger, that you feel puffier, that you don't fit in things the same, even though you totally do. I don't know what's going on, but it's there, and it fucks with all of our heads.
It does. And I think it happens to everyone. And I reached out to my coach, Stacy, during this period of time, because one of the things I was really struggling with was that I felt like, as a nutrition coach, I should be able to be really lean and be really strong, because that's what we see all over Instagram, right?
Yeah.
That's A, not correct, and B, not how my body is, and C, who the hell cares? And so as a natural lifter, it can be very difficult to stay very lean and continue to build insane amounts of strength.
Yes.
And so I reached out to my coach during this period of time, and I'm like, I feel like a fucking failure. Like I don't like how I feel about my body. And we talked about it, and she was like, I get it. Like, this is something that a lot of high level athletes go through, is that you are sacrificing a lot of things to get to where you want to get to. And one of the things you may be sacrificing is how you feel about how you look.
Comfort in your body.
Yeah. But here's what's interesting. As I went through that, I mean, obviously I texted her that during a fluffy period.
Yep.
And then a week or two later, I leaned out, and I've gone through, exactly. And I keep going through those cycles. And so I say to anyone going through that is like, keep going, because it's not going. Here's the other thing is, it's not, whatever you're doing is not permanent. And I mean, unless you're somehow permanently damaging your body by staying too lean, that could be permanent. But gaining some weight, it's not permanent. So you gain weight, and then you're like, shit, I don't like this. I can lose weight, but you got to give yourself time to see what actually happens, because you might surprise yourself. I had made a post a long time ago about how like pull-ups got harder. because I had gained weight.
Yeah.
But as that weight started working for me and I started getting stronger, guess what? I could do just as many pull-ups again. So I guess the mindset stuff is, I can't sit here and say, don't be worried about it, because you're going to be worried about it. It's very difficult. I did this during the summer too. So it's like time to be out at the lake and at the beach and having fun in a swimsuit and all this. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I now am at a place where, yes, I have more body fat. I love what my body can do so much that I won't go back. I'm not going back. And now I'm comfortable. Now I'm comfortable with where I'm at. It took me a little while. It took me some remembering my why. We talk about this all the time. Yeah. Remember your why. Why did you start? Why are you doing this? And continue to remember that even during the hard parts.
Yes.
Because if I had said, that's it, this is enough, pull the plug on this, I'm going to lose weight again, I would have just been stuck in this cycle that I think this yo-yo dieting.
Get in the cycle. Yes. You guys, we all do this. We all get to the point where like, oh, I really hate this. I want to change. And it doesn't matter that we spent, maybe 3 weeks feeling really good and we have one shitty week and then we want to cut. Well, we just basically took those 3 weeks of strength gains and flushed them down the toilet because we're going now backwards.
Right. And the other thing too is that, remember that, so I was priming my body to build muscle and strength. But if I gained 2 pounds last week, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily stronger right now today.
Right.
It means that I've primed my body to be able to be stronger, but it takes a little bit of time for that to catch up. So now that I'm 5 months out from that, I can see all the fruits of my labor. But at the time, it was like, I just feel like a potato.
Yeah.
And am I getting stronger? I don't know. I mean, I did have some proof that I was getting stronger on some things, but it definitely messed with my head big time.
I think what we can say is that it's not going to be easy, especially if you already struggle with your body weight. It gets better.
Yeah.
And the more you stick with it and the more you see these positive changes, the less you're going to care about how you look, which is going to be ironically kind of paired with you're going to be looking better because you're going to be putting on the muscle. You're going to be getting stronger. You're going to be that body type or whatever that you kind of idolize or whatever you look towards because you're allowing your body to change. There's something that I'm trying to adopt into my life. If you want to try something new, try it for at least a year. Maybe not for dieting or eating. Maybe you want to try it for 6 months, but pick something, stick with it for at least 6 months. And then after 6 months, evaluate. If at 6 months you still hate everything and you don't like your body, well, maybe lifting at an elite heavy level, at a higher level, is not for you. Maybe you need to be a recreational lifter like me. Enjoy your lifting and keep your body where you feel comfortable, because there's nothing I would trade. Like Kristin wouldn't go back to being small. She wants to stay strong. There's nothing I would trade to if I had to go back to the time that I hated my body and I was strong. I'm just in a better place mentally when my body is it's not perfect. I don't love it. I don't love how it looks all the time, but I'm so comfortable in my body. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yes.
So it's just person by person, right?
Exactly. Because you and I both have arrived to the same point, the same place in terms of how we feel about our bodies.
We love them.
How we got there and what we are doing are very different.
Completely different.
And that's okay.
It's 100% okay. And I think talking about boxes, if you are a small person trying to fit in a small box, that's fine. You're going to fit in a small box. If you're a taller person, more muscle person, and you're trying to fit in a small box, it's not going to work. But also we can take a step back and think of it differently. If you are not someone who really cares about having these big numbers or making national teams or going to nationals itself, there's nothing wrong with that. Stop putting yourself in that box. Stop feeling like you need to be part of that group to be relevant. You're relevant. You relevant like me. I'm you know how I use this example a lot. You know how there are racehorses and sometimes racehorses have like a companion animal, like a goat? I'm your goat. I'm still important. I'm still relevant. I'm here to support you, but I'm still going to be a goat. I'm still going to go butt
and you
things
still
and
do
eat
goat
shit.
things.
Yeah,
That's
and you're
right.
going to go racing, and I'm going to be like, go, Kristin, and then we're going to hang out, and I'll be your support, and I'll do goat things.
But does the horse support the goat? Because if not, that makes me sad.
The horse does, but
Okay.
the goat just...
Okay, because I support you.
I know, but
Okay.
you just have to support me in goat things, like eating all the trash, or...
I support you
headbutting
in
things.
screaming in people's faces. Don't goats do that?
Yeah, they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
it's okay to be a goat. It's okay to be a racehorse. You just need to figure out what makes you the happiest and what fits in your life the best.
Right.
Sometimes, although I will say sometimes, like I'm sure Kristin would tell you, there are times that she's like, what the fuck am I doing? This is so hard. But at the end of the day, her goals still push her towards where she wants to be.
Oh, yeah. So right now, at the time of recording this, I'm 2 weeks out from a meet. By the time this comes out, the meet's probably going to already have happened.
She did great.
Thanks for believing in me.
You're welcome. Bye.
So I got distracted by your...
The meet's already happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so about... I don't know, maybe 3-4 nights ago, I had a little freak out. Like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? Why? Like, because it's taking, when you are preparing for a meet like this, it takes all of your focus. It takes all of your time. I mean, so I have work, I have my relationships, and then every last bit of energy and focus is going into making sure that I'm recovered and making sure that I can get to training and making sure that I'm getting my sleep in, and then thinking about my travel plans to the meet and just all of these moving parts. And it's taking literally all of my focus.
Yeah.
And there are times where I'm like, why am I even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, duh, because you want to and you love it. So there are times where even when you're doing something that you love, you're going to question your sanity. You're going to question why you're doing it because it's hard. And if it wasn't hard for me, if things aren't hard, I get bored and I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
So
that may be something, a different issue entirely, but
I'm easily bored. I need a challenge. I need a challenge in life.
Any goal you work toward is going to be hard. And it's just, if you are someone who's a racehorse and that's your goal, it doesn't matter really what gets thrown at you. At the end of the day, you're going to be like, well, fuck it, I still want that goal.
Right.
But if you're a goat and you're working towards something that's ungoat-like,
racehorse stuff.
I have no desire to be a racehorse. I love being a goat. And that's just, at the end of the day, my racehorse mentality is applied to something else.
Got it.
Whereas my goat mentality is kind of lifting.
Got it.
So find your racehorse thing in your life.
Yeah.
And if lifting is your goat, that's fine.
I want to say something else about lifting. I want to just speak to beginner lifters here for a moment. Because I remember when I got like serious about lifting, like I was a recreational lifter and just doing things for the fun of it. But when I really got bit by the lifting bug, I really, really, really wanted to be strong. But I also really, really, really wanted to be lean. And so I spent a lot of my time getting strong, trying to get strong and lean at the same time.
That worked well.
Well, I wasn't doing it in the eat for strength body recomposition way. No. I was doing it in the dieting way.
Yes.
And this was way back before I counted macros. So I don't even know what the hell I was eating. I just decided to cut out anything that I thought was quote unquote bad. So I didn't eat ice cream anymore. And I tried to just eat a lot of, like how most people try to eat when they're trying to eat healthy, like lean. I was eating like lean protein and lots of vegetables and whatever. Anyway, I still was probably way under eating. And I remember thinking, I'm going to use the F word here. I know we sometimes get in trouble for using the F word, but it's going to happen. I remember feeling fat. I thought I was fat.
Fun.
Okay.
The other F word. Yeah,
that F word. This is personally how I felt about myself. Okay. I'm not fat shaming anyone. I felt like I had more body fat than I wanted.
Yeah.
And when I look back at pictures and I know in my head what I wanted to look like, which is what I look like right now, is how I wanted to look back then. I just simply didn't have enough muscle mass to look like how I look now. So I was trying to stay under 150 pounds and was probably a little bit more body fat than I have right now.
Well, you were trying to reveal muscles you didn't have.
I thought there were muscles there. Oh. They weren't there. They weren't there.
Cute young Kristin.
I thought that they were. I thought they were just covered up by fat.
Yeah.
And so what I really needed to do was put on muscle. I didn't need to be dieting.
Mm-mm.
And I think,
continue your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, but I was so afraid because I thought in my head, I had this idea of like what eating to fuel your training was going to look like. And I was wrong about what it looked like, by the way. But I thought it meant I was going to get bigger, and more body fat. Like I wasn't going to lose the body fat that I had, which I really wanted to lose. I just didn't understand really how it worked way back then, which is kind of why I'm so passionate about performance nutrition now, because I recognize all of the things that I did wrong. And I want to save people from that. I don't want people to go through that because I just simply needed to gain muscle.
Right. Well, I think that's the whole point of this podcast is to get you guys in the mentality that you don't need to cut. Yeah, you're going to have all these fitness influencers, companies trying to sell you the only thing that they tell you need, which is to cut. And it's not what you need. What you need is to spend your first couple years just lifting heavy, and your gains will come and your recomposition will come.
We see that happen all the time. I just talked about this in our Instagram stories the other day.
Yeah.
We see all of the time people just eating to perform. They're eating for strength, and they have body recomposition so that they end up the same weight. So over a 4-month period or a 6-month period, their weight doesn't change. Their body composition drastically changes.
Yes.
We see this happen all of the time. This is the evolution of training and fueling your training. These changes will happen. But if you're already, like I was in the beginning of this, if you're already too lean to put on sufficient strength, you're probably going to have to gain some body fat too.
Body fat keeps your body healthy as long as it's healthy body fat.
It does. Yeah. As long as you are, so I think 32% body fat is the tipping point for being into the obese category. And with that comes a higher risk of other health issues and diseases. So I would say as long as you're healthy, great. If your aim is to be 15 to 17% body fat,
that's not healthy.
That's not healthy for women. That's you're probably going to have a lot of hormonal disruption at that point.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you started I think we'll finish on this. When you started your whole Olympic weightlifting and when you moved down here, do you remember what your weight was?
When you started the
nutrition.
When
when you reached your peak.
Yes. So let me back up. So I had spent a very stressful year of my life, deciding that I was going to move across the country. I had to sell my clinic, sell my practice. I got married. Yeah. I left my family. Very, very stressful period of time. Yeah. My weight, I wasn't really working out during that. A little bit during that year, but especially the last 4 months. No.
We go through ebbs and flows of life. That's fine.
Right. It was a very stressful period of my time. So I had gained quite a bit of weight because I wasn't really working out much. I was still eating quite a bit of food. And then I was stress eating. I was drinking more alcohol than I normally drink. All of these very unhealthy things I was partaking in. And my weight got up to the tipping point for me was when I stepped on the scale on 4th of July, 2015. I weighed 163 pounds, which was the most I had ever weighed in my entire life.
Looking at yourself now, I mean,
yeah,
look at the difference between where you were and where you are.
And now I'm back up to 161, 162, and the body composition changes over that over those 4 years have been incredible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've gone through quite the journey, but I think it's important to recognize what I wanted to make with this point was weight is nothing really.
Weight doesn't matter.
Weight does not matter. It matters if you need to be in a certain weight class.
Right.
But in terms of like how your body looks, less weight doesn't mean you're going to like how you look more.
Right.
Kristin loves how her body looks and feels right now.
Right. Which I did not like 4 years ago at this weight.
At the same weight.
Yep.
And I know we've seen the Instagram posts, but like it's a real thing, guys. Mm-hmm. If you are just trying to get small because you think you're going to love your body, then you are very misled. You will not love your body at any weight unless you figure out how to love your body right where it is.
That's so true. I was just talking to a friend not too long ago about how even when I was like a 63 kilo lifter, there were things about my body I didn't like. Mm-hmm. And that was a point at which I realized I can't lose any more weight. I have to accept these things because they're not going to change. Mm-mm. This is how I am. This is how I'm built. So just having less body fat isn't going to make you happy if you already don't love your body.
Yeah.
And that was something I think I had to go through to understand it truly. Mm-hmm. I have to learn everything the hard way. Everyone could tell me the same thing, but until I truly learn it and know it for myself, oh, okay, you're right. Mm-hmm. I'm still not even happy, even though I look freaking anorexic.
Yeah. And how you get to the space that you love your body is going to be completely different for everyone. Absolutely. Some people, it's appreciating what it can do. Yeah. Some people, it's just recognizing that you just need to be patient and you need to love your body with however it's doing. It gives you life. I mean, that's pretty important. But it's going to be a different journey for each of us. But until you can sit down and say, whether I'm 10 pounds heavier or 10 pounds lighter, like my body works for me. Yeah. And I love it. You're not going to be happier or smaller.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is realizing that I love my body most based on how it feels and how it makes me feel. Like I can get around. I'm strong. It's very capable. I'm healthy. I don't have any health issues. My hormones are healthy. All of these things. My body is very capable, and that is, I think, the most important part about like body acceptance and body appreciation.
Yeah. Because if you don't let your body be healthy, you don't love it.
Right.
Healthy bodies. So in this whole thing, we've talked about massing and we've talked about putting on extra body mass so you can fuel your performance and recovery. And this can be done. We are teaching you guys how to do this through our new course. Our new course is called Eat for Strength Mass. And it's all of these principles. We're going to teach you how you can apply the same kind of weight gain / performance recovery optimization through our Eat for Strength principles.
Yeah, it's the Eat for Strength Mass course is with the same principles as all of our Eat for Strength courses, but it's really focusing on your recovery and your performance to drive how much weight you gain. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty individual, and it's with that, as with all of our Eat for Strength courses, they're all performance driven. They're all performance nutrition driven, but this is really focusing in on the performance and the recovery aspect. So especially if you're finding yourself really under recovered, you're finding yourself unable to maintain your weight easily, and you are wanting to try to gain weight and you're like terrified, how do I do this without going overboard? Yeah. That's the stuff we're going to teach you.
That's what we got.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So if you guys would like, you can check out our massing program in the link below. It's up for sale on the website right now. So go check that out. If you are not a patron already, don't forget we do our weekly Q&As over on patreon.com/empoweredbyiron. Your support means the world to us. It means we can continue to grow the podcast and hopefully bring on some extra people in the future so we can go to once a week and keep bringing you guys some kick-ass research and mindset stuff. Yep. I think that's it. So until next time, ladies, we will talk to you then. Bye.
Bye, ladies.